For most Westerners, their first real identification of the Maghreb probably came with the movie Casablanca. Then in the 1960s and 1970s, famous people, especially movie stars and rock stars, began to go down to Tangiers and Casablanca and probably especially Marrakesh. That brought on a nascent tourism industry that has grown since then. Furthermore, you're probably aware that the very famous French writer Albert Camus lived in what would be modern day Algeria. The Maghreb is in the northwestern corner of Africa, and it includes Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and a little bit of Libya. I'm going to focus on the first three, though. There are just under 100 million people living in those four countries combined. Take a look at this map. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya. There you can see them. And you can see that this is also in the northwestern corner of Africa. The very name Maghreb is a reference to the Atlas Mountains, which have multiple ranges, and you can see circled here. The Atlas Mountains have peaks that are up to and over 12,000 feet. They get snow in the winter, and they receive something in the neighborhood of 30 inches of precipitation annually. Why would I give you those statistics, and why do they matter? This area is dominated by the Sahara Desert. This is North Africa. Do you imagine 30 inches of precipitation when you think of the Sahara? What those Atlas Mountains do is they block the worst effects of the Sahara from the Maghrebian coast. Because of that, there's a substantial population that's able to survive and live there. That area is also known as the Barbary Coast. This is kind of an older historic name for that region. This is because of the original inhabitants, or probably the original inhabitants, the Berbers, who are also known as the Amazighs. Furthermore, the Tuaregs live there. You can see these are the Tuaregs in this photograph. They're known for wearing these blue sets of clothing. But most people who live there are Arabs. These people arrived with the Arab invasion after the founding of Islam, probably 1,300 years ago. Most people who live there speak Arabic, although the Berbers and the Tuaregs speak their own native language as well. And most people converted to Islam. So the Berbers and the Tuaregs overwhelmingly are Muslims also. This is a Berber carpet, which is one of the things that the Berbers are famous for, this knitted carpet. You probably heard of it. What were the Tuaregs doing? Well, they move around and still do this today in camel trains that come up from places like Mali up through the desert, and then they trade their goods in the souks of especially Morocco, but Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, and Libya. And then they turn around and bring things back down to Western Africa. This has been going on for, in all likelihood, thousands of years. The souks have a sort of exotica to them. You can see the snakes that are in the souk in Marrakesh, and all of this beautiful lamp things and wrought iron materials that they make and then sell in the souks. Let's see what the landscape's like. There are three distinct zones in the Maghreb. There's the coastal strip, the Atlas Mountains, and the Sahara. We're going to look at each one. Starting with the coastal strip. The coastal strip has a Mediterranean climate. We met this before. Remember, a Mediterranean climate is a warm, dry summer, cool, moist winter climate. It allows you to grow the top-end legal crops. And it's one of the most comfortable climates on Earth. The majority of people in the Maghreb, so the majority of that nearly 100 million people, live in this coastal strip, obviously because of the climate. It's sheltered from the harshness of the Sahara. That's, of course, because of the Atlas Mountains. And there's an export-driven agricultural system that exists there. The products they make or grow include citrus products, olives and olive oil, wheat, and cut flowers. Almost all of that ends up going to Europeans. This is also the end of the caravan routes, especially Marrakesh, Tangiers, and Casablanca. There's also an incredible combination of spices in the food, things like cinnamon, clove, pepper. And they have a unique tagine style of cooking. You may very well have heard of this if you've gone to a Moroccan restaurant, With a tagine, they cook inside of this pot that has this interesting lid on it. What it does is when you're heating the bottom part, moisture comes up and then it drips back down along the sides, which keeps everything very moist. The second part of the Maghreb region is the Atlas Mountains, which you can see here. See, they're substantial and there's snow on them. But there's not a lot of people who live there. The population is sparse. Most people who live there are engaged in transhumance, which means moving animals from place to place to take advantage of pasture land. This is a very typical thing in rough landscapes, that where you cannot grow agriculture, you move animals around because the animals don't really care. They're just looking for food. Then beyond that is the Saharan interior. Very few people live there. You can see it's incredibly stark. The people who do live there are engaged in transhumance, moving animals around, but this is also the area where the camel caravans go through, coming up from West Africa, particularly Mali, and then heading up towards the Maghrebian coast. There are fewer and fewer of these camel caravans. As I mentioned to you, in the Arabian Peninsula, there has been a rural to urban migration, and what that is doing is it's cutting down on traditional lifestyles. But especially in the desert of Algeria, this is where the oil and natural gas is at. Furthermore, phosphates come out of there. Most of this gets brought up to the coastline and then shipped off to Europe. So, this area was colonized. I don't know if you remember the World War I and Ottoman video that I created for you, but if you do, there was a map there that showed which European powers controlled what at the onset of World War I. The area of the Maghreb, especially Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, was controlled overwhelmingly by France, with a small amount controlled by Spain. And of course, Libya was controlled by Italy. The French created an export-oriented agriculture system that was designed to send products to France. So in other words, the products that were grown for French benefit, and they were products that the French wanted. Europe is very far north, and it's very difficult in much of Europe to grow, for example, citrus products. But it's not difficult to grow citrus products if you live along the Maghrebian coast. French is widely spoken among people, so in addition to Arabic and then these other native indigenous languages like the Berber language and the Tuareg language, French is widely spoken by people, especially people who either interact with foreigners or get an education. These countries became independent in the 1950s and 1960s, so they're not even very old if you think about it, even though the cultures are ancient. But at the same time, when they became independent, their main trading partner remains France, especially for Morocco and Tunisia. Their number one trading partner is France. Algeria has as its number one trading partner Italy, but at the same time, France, I believe, is number two. So you can see Morocco and Tunisia, it's number one, and then for Algeria, it's number two. In other words, what happens is the colonialism kind of sticks for a long time. This is part of the souk in Marrakesh. You can see that there's fresh fruits that they sell there, and of course these fruits also get shipped off to Europe. The next time you buy your leather purse or your leather shoes or your leather jacket or your leather belt, just know that this is the way leather's made. You trim, after you kill the animal, you trim the skin off, which has fur on it and fat. They put it in these vats. The vats have, I believe, alkali solution in it, which then slowly strips off the fat and the fur, and then you leave this out to dry. When I took this picture, it was 105 degrees outside. That guy was standing in that solution, getting these skins out. And I will tell you, there were maggots swimming around in it. It's quite a very rough thing making leather.